There's so many different parenting styles out there, and there's gentle parenting, which I think sounds nice philosophy wise, not a fan. But, there's so many different philosophies. And I would say if I had to put a title to my parenting style, it would probably be conversation based parenting.
I think parenting for most people is exhausting. It's hard to have the same conversations over and over, the same reprimands over and over, do it day in and day out. You have a level of commitment to parenting that I've never seen.
I'm a stay-at-home mom. I am with my kids all the time. For you have a career and you also parent. Of course, parenting is higher, but you have a career that is also really high on your priority list. My career is my children. And so I treat it with a lot of respect and a lot of responsibility. Well, welcome back to the Vow Factor podcast. We are Richard and Haley Mujica. Been married a little over a decade, 4 little kids, growing a business, living life, doing all the fun things. And we really love and are super passionate about marriage and want to share it with the world. That's
right.
Our goal. So you guys won't miss a week because we have enough in the pipeline to keep it all going. But we didn't record last week because we were in Des Moines, Iowa. Do you want to share what we were doing in Iowa, babe?
Des Moines, Iowa. So we invested in an apartment building out there with your brother, and we literally took the apartment down to the studs and then rebuilt it all back to magnificentness.
It's so cute.
And it was legit.
Yeah, it turned out really nice.
Yeah, it looked really good. I mean, it was like we saw it was a motel that was just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turned it into a nice, beautiful apartment building.
Yeah. So if
So
you're
it's
in
cool.
the Des Moines, Iowa area and you need a place to live, it's in Urbandale. What's it called?
Urbandale.
The View on Hickman.
The View on Hickman
Is what it's called. And it's a beautiful apartment building. If you
Oh,
know
it's
anyone in Des Moines that needs a place.
It's super legit.
But we love Des Moines, Iowa. It is just the cutest,
It is cool.
sweetest place with the most lovely people. My brother went to college out there and just fell in love with it. He actually named his son Ames, which is a city in Iowa.
And he's a character.
Oh, Ames is the cutest. But we love Iowa. So we're super happy to be able to invest out there. And
We do.
it was a nice little trip. It was fun.
It was a great time.
So
Yeah.
fun.
And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that if you do enjoy the podcast, if you feel like it would help another couple, then share it with those people. And then that'll help us grow. That'll help everybody grow, get some value, hopefully. And I think ultimately strengthen marriages.
That's the goal.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So like, share, comment, follow, all those fun things.
All the good stuff. Yeah.
All those fun things. Okay.
Subscribe.
Is that what? Yeah, that's what they say. All right. So today's podcast, we are talking about parenting as a team. So obviously this is a marriage podcast. This is not a parenting podcast. So we'll go into some of like the tactics and methodologies that we use and how we do it. But more so the topic of the podcast is in your marriage, how do you parent as a team and how do you approach parenting as a team instead of adversaries? That's what we're talking about.
I say just
today.
do it as adversaries.
You always do this. Stop.
Curveball.
And we've talked this through. He's just being difficult.
Oh, man.
So parenting as a team.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do because when you're two different people, you were raised in two different families, two different ways, no matter how similar you may be, you were raised different. And so when you approach things, it can be tricky sometimes. But we've been very, very mindful about parenting together. And we'll share maybe some of our struggles that we've had too in that area. But it should be fun. It should be a good one.
Because it's such a real thing. It's not easy.
Of course
There's
not.
so many books on it. But honestly, sometimes the books, you feel like the books are great. But when you get into the real life, it's like, oh, man, how do I apply the book
application can be hard.
in this scenario? So, yeah, I think it's going to be great. And I want to preface this whole conversation by saying this. You taught me the most I've ever learned in parenting personally. And I think you have a philosophy around parenting that I was not accustomed to. And you have a philosophy on disciplining that maybe I was not accustomed to. So I learned in this game of marriage, majority of my parenting tactics from you.
Interesting.
So I want to preface that because I feel like you are literally an expert in this subject. I don't know if you want to call yourself the parenting expert, but I think you could.
I would never call myself that. But what I will say is I do believe I'm an expert in my children.
Yeah.
And I believe very, very strongly.
Not only that, let me just stop you real quick. You've nannied for 2 families. And one of those families, three families. Every single family, you just had that family dialed in with them just listening, sitting. I mean, there was one family where they couldn't get their kids to sit and behave, and you come in and in a matter of a month had those kids like doing what you said. Because you have a methodology that works. I'm just going to put that out there. It just works.
So I do want to get more into like what those methodologies are, but I'll start by just saying that, our whole podcast is about marriage. And so we talk a lot about how highly we value marriage and how much we love marriage.
Yeah.
But a very, 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 very close second to that for us is we love children in general. We love our children and we love parenting. Like we really do love it. And I think every parent loves their children and loves parenting, but you just talking about being a nanny, I think that's one of the reasons why I was maybe so good at it, I'll just say, is because I think the kids really knew that I loved them and I loved being with them, and that was just something I enjoy and value a lot. But okay, so that was interesting to hear you say, because you said that, my philosophy on parenting was something you were not accustomed to. What would you say my philosophy on parenting is?
I don't know how to sum it up in a couple words, but all I know is that you do what you say what you do. So you live it out. You don't make false threats. You don't make false promises. You teach, you teach and not condemn. You walk, you take the time to walk through scenarios with the kids. You take the time to literally teach the kids why you do what you do, help them think on their own. You say something, the kids know that if mom says it, it's going to get done. You have this way of explaining things to the kids that I've seen a lot of parenting, and I've seen a lot of different parenting styles, but nobody's that I've seen has taken the time to truly explain to their kids the why behind what they do and why they parent the way they do and why they think the way they do and why, hey, son, let me tell you why I want to approach it like this and why I think it's important that you maybe look at this from a different angle. So like you very much teach the kids and you help the kids think on their own, and you don't make false, consequences.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's so funny. So,
now that might be second nature to you, but I didn't.
And that's what I was going to say. It really is. And it's funny because, there's so many different parenting styles out there, and there's gentle parenting, which I think sounds nice philosophy-wise, not a fan. But, there's so many different philosophies. And I would say if I had to put a title to my parenting style, it would probably be conversation-based parenting.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of conversation that happens with our kids. But I was laughing at myself when we were in Iowa. So we were there with my brother and his wife and their two kids. And they have a 2-month-old baby, right? So she's little. She's not conversing with me. But I'm holding her. And the whole time I'm holding her, I'm just talking to her. And I'm telling her what I'm doing. And I'm telling her where we're going. And I'm telling her like, oh, we're going to go change your diaper now. And like, but it's just like, it's just so natural to me. But, and so that's with the 2-month-old. But then as my kids have gotten older, that's just continued. And okay, we're going to go do this because of this. And we're going to do this because of this. And I try to just have so much conversation with my kids, but I was just laughing at myself with the baby because I caught myself doing it. And it was funny.
And here's the thing. I think here's the book title that I would give it. I haven't really fleshed this out.
Ooh,
I might
hear
have to
it.
get ChatGPT to help me.
Let's hear it. I want to hear yours.
But I would say it's something to the effect of this. It's like how to parent well without cutting corners. Because, and what I mean by that, again, that's probably a horrible title. You know what?
No, I
ChatGPT
don't think it is at all.
But what I mean by that is you are very diligent in parenting. Like, I think parenting for most people is exhausting. And don't get me wrong, it is exhausting because it's hard to have the same conversations over and over, have the same reprimands over and over, and then do it day in and day out. But like what you do so phenomenally well is you just don't cut corners. Like I know there's be so many days where you could just take it easier than you take it with parenting, but you just don't. Do you know what I mean? And I think that level of commitment is very rare. And that might be what it is more than anything, is you have a level of commitment to parenting that I've never seen besides you.
That's interesting. But
I'll cut corners. You know me. I'll be like, hey, you know what, guys? Play the video game.
You're a little bit of a pushover.
I can be a pushover, but because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. And again, I got things on my mind. I'm thinking about all this. I know you are too, but I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Yeah, that's fine. Just go do that, son. Right? Like that's my I'll just do that. But you don't do that, like ever. And I think that's what makes that super special. Is like your grit and mentality and just willingness to get it done right every time. That is, I think that's what makes it pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, well, but there's that, age old principle that we've talked about here before, but like you can do the easy thing now, which will make the hard later longer, or you can do the hard thing now, which will make life easier later longer, So I try to be mindful of that. But I also think, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm a homeschooling mom. I am with my kids all the time. Aside from our date night and when we record this podcast, I'm with my children. And I love that. And I am very, very aware that, financially we're in a place where I could choose not to do that. So like the fact that I'm doing it is because I want to be doing it. But for you have a career and you also parent. And of course, parenting is higher up in the that list of values that we talked about. Of course, parenting is higher, but you have a career that is also really high on your priority list. My career is my children.
Yeah.
Like that is my career. And so I treat it with a lot of respect and a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes to all of it.
Yes to all of it. But all that said, so you talked a lot about like, the consistency of if you're going to make a threat, you have to follow through. If you're going to say you're going to do something, you have to do it. And I don't think that gets enough attention in like the parenting world or, advice world and how important that is. And I'll say that was so much easier when our kids were really little. As they're getting older, it's a lot harder because they can hold a grudge a lot longer. And as a mom, it can hurt, where it's like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 hours and my son's still mad at me or whatever. Whereas when they were little and they hit their friends, you had to leave the park. It's like, okay, they're over it in 5 minutes. When they get older, you've got to be willing to like stand your ground a lot longer and also make sure you're not putting your worth in what your kid thinks of you in the moment. Like you're playing a long game when it comes to parenting.
It's a great perspective.
But it's a lot harder, but it's probably even more important. It's not more important because when they're little, you're setting the foundation of like, hey, when mom, so like our kids know when mom says something, it's happening like that. It's serious. But that's a foundational thing that started when they were very, very little. That you can't just like, or it's a lot harder to jump into when they're older. Like all of a sudden now you mean what you say. Like it's really hard to do.
It's almost
later.
Impossible.
It's possible, but it's hard.
You're working backwards.
But there also, aside from being super consistent and saying what you mean and mean what you say, you also have to be reasonable, right? So as parents, sometimes you say things that are ridiculous. You're never leaving this house again. You're never playing video games again in your whole life. You're never, and like you say those things and then you have to be willing to walk those things back and like eat crow a little bit too. So like it's a balance between being consistent and saying what you mean and mean what you say and being predictable because that's really important. But then also having mercy and grace and being reasonable. And so there's been lots of times where I've doled out punishments that were maybe unfair and unreasonable. And so, but here's the thing is my kids, they can't just whine and complain and be like, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. And then I'm like, okay, fine. They have to come to me reasonably. So like if they come to me and they say, you know what, mom, this is the punishment. I think it's a little bit I think it's a little bit unfair. What if we did this instead? And if it's something ridiculous, like, okay, mom, I'll pick up 5 pieces of trash and then I'm good. It's like, well, no, that's not going to work. But maybe you can write me a 5-page letter to your brother about how much you love him because you were mean to him. Maybe I'll be willing to trade the punishment or whatever. But you have to be willing to be reasonable also. And I think kids have a lot of respect for that too.
Yes. And be reasonable and have the conversations.
Right. You can't just look like you gave up on the punishment because you didn't want to follow through. They have to
explain.
They have to hear the entire thought process of why you're changing the punishment and why, I said something I didn't mean. I said something that was unreasonable. And so we're going to do this instead. I think that's
And
really
then
fun.
having that as a conversation.
And making it a conversation.
You know, there was a story I heard one time, and this story always stuck with me. I was just talking to Louie about this, your Garrett's business partner. And the story was a gentleman, his name is Patrick Bet-David. He walks into he's in like a store, a mall, and he sees this lady standing there. She was an older lady, very friendly lady. And he starts talking to the lady, and the lady's like, yeah, I got 4 kids and 4 boys. And she goes on to say, Patrick Bet-David goes, hey, you know, what do your boys do now, like for work? She goes, oh man, they did phenomenally well. I can't remember exactly all of them, but like one was a doctor, one was a lawyer, one was, you know, graduating, becoming like some type of engineer, and the other one had a great career as well. And he said, wow, man, like that's impressive. Like what was your secret? You know, what was your parenting secret with your boys? She said, well, I'll tell you what. When I said I was going to take away the iPad, I took away. Well, yeah, but yeah,
Probably not an iPad
yeah,
back
but
then,
but
but
she
yeah.
was kind of just saying it in today's terms, right? Like because Patrick, it's just a different day and age, and I think she kind of just knew that. But she's like, when I say I take away the iPad, they knew I was going to take away the iPad. She's like, I didn't make false claims. My boys knew that if I said it and they didn't do it, there was going to be a consequence, and it was never not going to be that way. And that story stuck with me because I've seen the difference in parenting. I've gone to parties and I've watched the parents interact, and I see it. It's like, Bobby,
When the
if you
kid
do that-
knows the threat is just
yeah, and the
not-
kid is just like, I've
Okay,
seen the
Dad.
kid just look at the parent like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go do. Like they've lost all authority, they've lost all credibility, and I've seen that over and over and over. And with you, there's none of that. And so, and I think people get amazed because they're like, well, how does Haley do that? But it's because you do what you say. And
Yeah, it's not top secret. It's not even that. It's not
Yeah.
hard, but it's difficult.
yeah, there's a running joke in our house, right? Like, if mom says it, don't mess with mom. Like,
Which is so
don't mess
funny.
with mom. Yeah,
Because we've talked about this before, but like I'm all of 5 feet tall and my husband is 6'2". But if you ask our kids who's scary, it's mom. It ain't dad.
don't get me wrong. I can get
You
scary.
can throw down when you have to.
I can throw it down, but yes, that is the running joke in
That
our
is the running joke.
in our marriage. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and so I don't know if you remember this, but you still have it. I've found it in your drawer. But when Riker was born, so Riker's our oldest, he's 10. And when he was born in the hospital, I gave you a card. Do you remember that? Like I had it written out before and kept it in our little hospital bag and then gave it to you after the baby was born. Do you remember?
I think it probably said something like, Rich, you're so good looking, and I'm just so happy that you're my husband.
It might have said
Or something-
that.
something like that,
It was
along those
something
lines,
like
yeah.
that.
I do
Yes,
remember
That
it,
was
yeah.
definitely in there. Yes. But also what was in there was just this reminder that we always have to remember that we're a team. It's you and I, not against this little person, but sometimes it's you and I, but it's not me and the little guy against you or you and the little guy against me. It's you and me, and we're taking on this little guy. You know what I mean? I think that's really, really important to remember as a parent. And I think one of the ways you can tactically do that is I've seen so often the moms that like use dad as a threat. Like, oh, you wait till your dad gets home. You just wait till I tell your dad. And then you kind of make dad the heavy. So then dad's at work all day and then he comes home and the first thing he has to do when he walks in the door and hasn't seen the kids all day is he has to dole out a punishment. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. And I don't think women should do that. I think for a lot of reasons. A, I don't think it's fair to dad. B, I don't think it's fair to the kids because the kids should be excited for their dad to come home. But see, it's also not fair to you as a mom. You're going to have a much more peaceful home if you can handle business when it has to be handled. If you can't handle it and you have to wait for dad to get home to handle it and the kids know that you can't actually do anything, they need to wait for dad, you're going to get run over all day long. So that would be my first thing is like as a wife and a mom, it is not fair. It is not kind to anybody in the family to use dad as the threat and as the enforcer.
Yeah,
I feel very, very strongly about that.
yeah. I think it's an easy way out.
It is, but it's one of those things that's easy now and difficult later.
Exactly.
I would not do that. What else? How else do you think that we've approached parenting as a team?
Well, I would say we always try to show a united front, meaning that in the moment, we are always on the same page in front of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's like mom's going to back dad up, dad's going to back me up, and mom up. And because what can happen a lot of times that I've seen is that the kids start manipulating the parents, right? Because they already know mom and dad are not on the same page. So I'm going to go to mom because mom's more lenient over here, and then dad's more lenient over there.
Yeah,
and
they
so then they start working it, right? And then they start pawning each parent against each other because they already know the dynamic.
Oh, kids
But
are so smart.
They're so smart. With us, they know that we're pretty much on a united front around everything. So we don't have that dynamic in our house. Now, it has happened a couple times where they've gone over and they've asked dad about something that I thought it has happened.
It has happened, yeah.
But it's quickly gotten mitigated and squashed.
Yeah, and then
so-
once we talked, like, well, babe, you said they could do this. Like, I just told them they couldn't do that. Then we turn around and be like, well, hey, you already talked to. So we walk that back and make sure they understand. Like, hey, we
Have the
saw what you
conversation.
did here, and
You're caught, buddy.
You're caught, buddy.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I think that's very important.
yeah, for sure. Kids are so smart. They read the room.
They know.
They learn the room so quick.
They know how to get what they want.
They know. And this has been really hard for me in one specific area. And that is doling out discipline of our oldest. And I don't know why. It's really just him in particular. And it must just be something with like, he was my baby and he's the one who made me a mom. And I was, I'm so close to all of them. But there's something about when Rich would have to discipline him that like, oh, I would feel like I was like going to come out of my skin. I just like could not handle it. That was so hard for me.
Forever.
It was
just until recently.
so hard. Yeah.
Where until finally you were just like, let him have it. Right? You did. You
Sometimes,
kind of
yeah.
got to that point where you're like, hey, maybe I kind of not made a mistake, but maybe I should have let his dad kind of intervene.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I definitely started to notice that like, okay, I think he needed a little bit more of that like heavy masculine hand. And I stood in the way and I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But there was something about that was really hard for me.
That's your little boy.
And I have another little boy and I have two little girls. I don't know. It has to just be something about like that first one, because obviously he's older. So he gets in maybe more trouble than the other three. I don't know. There was something about it that was really hard for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though in my head I would know, like, don't step in, don't stop the discipline, I would still do it, even though I knew I shouldn't do it. And there were a few times where you got upset, like, not upset. Richard doesn't really get upset, but where he would be like, babe, you need to let me discipline him. And I just couldn't do it. It was so hard.
Yeah. And Riker started knowing it too.
He did. So he worked it.
Yeah. So he worked it.
Yeah,
That's
he
right.
did.
Yeah. I think something that's important is that parenting is just kind of a gritty thing.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't.
There's nothing glamorous
There's
about
nothing
it.
glamorous about it. And I think that's important for parents to hear. Like, if you're going through it right now with parenting and you just feel like, is it supposed to feel like this? Is it supposed to feel hard? And is it supposed to
If
feel
you're doing a good job.
Because, Instagram can paint a different picture. Oh my gosh, these families look like they're just, everything's put together. The kids are always just great. Everybody's in a perfect mood. Nighttime's going
yeah.
wonderfully. All the kids go to bed. Like, I'm just here to say that world doesn't exist.
Oh my gosh. Well, sometimes on Richard's Instagram, it cracks me up because he'll record our like nighttime Bible reading time. And it is the most hectic, like any picture that you have of like this sweet little family sitting around the hearth reading the Bible and all the children are just sitting there listening. That ain't it. Like the dogs are barking and they're fighting and kids are talking and I'm
We're
just sitting there. I'm
frustrated.
just reading. I'm like, this is so ridiculous.
I'm like, babes, can we not do Bible
Can we
tonight?
not do it
And
tonight?
then you're like, no, we got to do Bible. I'm like, let's just go to bed. These guys are driving me nuts.
But-
kids are hitting each other. It's just nuts.
But Rich will share it from time to time on his Instagram. And I think that's really valuable because it's not the pretty hearth sitting around picture, but it's a real picture.
It never is.
Oh, and it's funny. Like
And
I
most
watch
of the
it the
moments
next day and I'm
I
like, that was
post on
funny.
Instagram are the nice moments, like
the
the
pretty
great
ones.
and pretty moments, but rarely is it like that.
Yeah,
But that's what makes life so great.
it is.
It is. It's those moments that we're going to miss. We know it,
Yep.
So yeah.
Parenting
Hopefully that's an encouragement
for sure.
for those out there.
Parenting's wild.
It could be wild.
Parenting is wild. So how would you say that our approach to parenting differs from like how you grew up?
Well, I was kind of more so, let's see, my mom, my mom was that mom that would kind of just say, hey, when your dad gets home, he's going to take care of business. So that's how we kind of operated. And my dad was the heavy in the house. And don't get me wrong, my mom could definitely handle business, so to speak, but my dad was the one that was going to drop the thunder, not necessarily my mom. Why are you laughing?
That's a funny phrase. Drop the thunder.
Yeah, drop the thunder. So we had that dynamic. I would say I knew how to work the room. Do you know what I mean? I would say in some ways that my parents were maybe not as united front as they could have been. So I knew who to go to work this and work that. And I would pin my parents against each other, and I knew the whole dynamics of everything. I mean, I had a great childhood. Obviously, I was like no complaints there, but it was not how we did things. Yeah, it was more false promise. Hey, Rich, if you do this, don't. I knew I could get away with it. Nothing was going to happen. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if I understand correctly, you definitely knew.
Now with my dad though, my dad did. I mean, he was the heavy. Like he, he believed in spanking. So I got a lot of spankings growing up, and I did not like spankings. And he would spank. He would call me out in grades and everything. So he was the heavy. I would say my mom was maybe a little bit more of the softy, and I knew I could get a lot of things done.
So I know that you definitely knew, like, okay, if I make my mom a cappuccino and I call her mama and I give her a foot rub, she'll pretty much do whatever I want, right? That
I know how to work it.
And I'm assuming with your dad, if you pose something like, hey, dad, like, let's go golf or whatever, you could probably get whatever you wanted from your dad that way, right? I would assume.
I don't know. That's a good question. My dad loved golf. I think if I mentioned golf in any sentence, he would probably do whatever.
Yeah. If it was, you're grounded and can't leave the house for weeks, but dad, let's go golfing, he would do it.
Yeah, he loved golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So.
But your parents had a lot of conversations with you. I think that's definitely one thing we've probably taken from your parents.
Oh, that is for sure.
A lot of
conversations. Did a great job of especially the Bible, and taking the time to sit around the table and talk and discuss. Yes, that was very good. Yeah. And that's honestly some of the best learning moments of my life, was just having those discussions. Because a lot of parents just don't. And I realized that with my friends, because I saw it. And their dad didn't sit them down, and because I would drive to school, and on my way to school, my dad would just speak into me. Hey, son, let me tell you about women. Hey, son, this is how you treat women. Hey, son, women are not objects. They're not something to be looked at as a sexual thing. Like he taught me a lot of things in the car, to how to be a man, how to view women, how to have conversations. So my dad to this day is very much a teacher. He loves teaching, kind of like you in that regard. And so those conversations were invaluable for me, that a lot of kids just didn't have.
Yeah, and I know that maybe it's because you were a boy. That was more your experience. I think your sisters, really had a lot of that conversation with your mom.
Yeah,
and probably your dad too. But just from hearing them talk, it was like a lot of conversation happening in your home.
Yeah,
that's cool. I didn't have that as much. So my parents were really, really good about the being united front. My mom did not use my dad as the heavy at all. I mean, both my parents could discipline and but he was not like the threat.
Yeah.
And so that was really good. But my home, we just weren't really wordy people. And so that's something that I like I said, I think a lot of it came really naturally, but then I've also watched it in your family. I've been kind of inspired by that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the one thing that, you and I think have done good in the whole scenario of, and here's the thing too, is you've read a lot of parenting books. You've actively tried to get good at parenting because you're all in on that aspect, So you've taken some pieces from this book, from that book, and kind of maybe found your own style blended across all these books and knowledge that you've taken in. But I think the one thing that has served us very, very well is being united around all the parenting stuff. And the other thing too, and something that you and I I think really agree on and believe in is helping the kids formulate their own thoughts and opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something to be said around parenting, because I think the school system, you and I have a lot to say about the school system, but I think one of the major things is that the school system does not help kids to think on their own. It creates great workers, but not independent thinkers. And something that I think you and I truly believe in and think is very important for our kids is to have them to have the ability of independent thought, to take a situation and not say, oh, this is what my dad would do. This is not what my friend down the street would do. It's like, wait, what do I think, right? And having that ability to critically think in situations based off of like frameworks and just their own thought process is something that we really believe in. And you've done a great job in your parenting style to foster that. And the way you fostered that is by asking the kids questions, by teaching and then getting their thoughts and opinions on it. Hey, Riker, what do you think about this scenario? Hey, Riker, how would you, let's just say this scenario occurred. How do you think about it? What would be your next move, right? And now you can kind of have a discussion, something that we love with our kids. And my dad taught me this, but if they want something, they need to come up with an argument as to why. The better the reason why. It's like, well, Dad, can I get a Xbox? It's like, well, son, what do you need an Xbox for? It's like, well, I want to play games. Well, like, son, come up with a reason, a case as to why you think an Xbox would be a great idea. And I think it's just asking those deeper, just to get them to think it through. Like, why? Tell me why. What's up? Where's your thoughts? Like, present an actual coherent argument and reason,
And I really I think it's human nature to kind of hear something and then repeat it like it's a fact. And I try to call that out when it happens. Like the other day, our kid said something about some YouTuber. He's like a YouTuber who does Call of Duty videos. And he's like, that guy doesn't even like Call of Duty and whatever. I'm like, son, where did you hear that? Like, did he say that he doesn't like Call of Duty, or are you just repeating something that someone else said? And it turned out he was just repeating something. But so I try to at least make them aware that they're doing that, and try to make them aware of not just repeating random things as if they're fact, but actually, do your due diligence, follow through, figure out if that's true before you just go spouting it. You know what I mean? And that's just a silly example, but it happens a lot. And, I probably even do it myself. It's just kind of human nature. But I try to call it out in them. And then another way I try to do that is explaining how, not just what my conclusion is, but how I came to my conclusion.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
You're very good at that.
Yeah.
This is how I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've had so many conversations. I see you and Riker and the kids sitting down and you're just explaining things to details. I'm like, man, it takes work.
And not even just me, right? Because we're a Christian family. We are raising our children with a Christian worldview. And so I really try to go back to, it said, what does the Bible say about this? If, there's a lot of cultural things that the Bible speaks on. So I'm not going to tell you necessarily what I think or what I wish the Bible said. Let's talk about what the Bible actually says, because that's our real authority and that's what really matters, right? And so I try to walk them through how to do that also, and to kind of forget what culture says you're supposed to think, forget what would even be easier to think or what would be nice to think. What does the Bible say? Yeah. And that's what matters.
Yeah. What does the Bible say? But then also bring up the other sides to it. Like, hey, son, what are your thoughts on, maybe something that's against our worldview, right? Hey, what are your thoughts on, whatever the issue might be? I can't think of issues right now. But we really get them to think of well, yeah, son, we believe in this, but what about the other side of it? Why, tell me, what do you think about that side? What do you agree with that side on? Or why do you agree with this side?
Okay.
And then getting them to really start contemplating, because I think as adults, as parents, you have to realize what you're growing is adult. They're going to be adults. They're going to be out on their own, and they're going to hear opposing forces eventually. So why not hear it now? Why not start bringing up those opposing forces now in their life? Because maybe they say, well, actually, I don't agree with what you guys think, and I actually think this is a better route. Well, let's talk about it. Tell me what you mean.
And that's the thing is truth doesn't have to be afraid of challenge, right? And so
that's a We should drop a bomb on that one.
and it's true.
Say it again.
Truth does not have to be afraid of challenge.
One more time.
I'm totally okay with my
That was a good one.
parents or with my children questioning my faith. I want them to.
Yeah.
And I want them to do it.
This is the time to do it.
This is the time to do it when we
Yes.
can like walk through it and talk it. And I'm not going to be threatened and like, oh, no, you can't say that. It's like, no, let's talk about that. I think that's really, really important. And then also, oh my gosh, I just had something in my head. Oh, I always try to make sure when I'm talking to my kids about those things that I'm never demonizing the people on the other side, right? I always try to talk to our kids about the intrinsic value of people. And even if they live differently than we do or think differently than we do, they still have value as humans. We can still love them. The Lord still loves them, still died for them. Like there's nothing
that makes you better.
that makes you better.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because I've seen so many families that in an effort to teach their children what they want their children to believe, they almost make them believe that the other side is bad and scary and you don't want to go over there. And like I said, truth doesn't have to be afraid of that.
Truth doesn't have to be afraid of lies. Is that what you said?
Afraid of challenge.
Truth doesn't have to be afraid of challenge.
Well, it certainly doesn't be afraid of lies either. But
Yeah, that was great.
I think when you kind of make it like, oh, over there is scary and bad, and then they get into the real world and they realize, oh, it's actually not scary and bad. My mom was wrong. Now they're going to kind of question everything you said.
There's a good quote right here. It says, your kids don't need perfect parents. They need united parents. When you parent together, your family becomes unstoppable.
I like that.
It's a good little quote, right?
That is a good quote.
Look, and here's another quote. Parenting as opponents is exhausting. Parenting as teammates is life-changing.
Oh,
I like that one. It's a pretty good one. I don't know. Could be better, maybe.
could be better.
So,
Any
yeah,
other
I mean,
ones?
no.
Just wanted to throw those out
yeah,
there.
I just wanted to throw those
Just
out
wanted
there.
to drop them. Real
Yeah,
quick.
I just want to throw those out there. So what do you think? So if you were to maybe, well, anything else you want to bring up?
Oh my gosh.
This is our life right now. We're in the thick of the parenting
We are
cycle.
in the thick of the parenting. I think it's just so important to remember that, like, even if you may have a career and you have other, like, I don't know, to me, there's just nothing as valuable and as important as, like, raising a person. Like, parenting just deserves so much respect and so much time and so much. It's such a huge responsibility. It should also be really fun, but I just think people need to take it really seriously and not just treat it as like, oh, that thing they have to come home to at the end of the day. It's like, I think you can still have a career and treat it with the utmost importance that it deserves. But I think that's probably really hard. But I think I don't know.
It's one of those not unfortunate things, but it is kind of unfortunate is that you don't get paid for it. Like it's
Not monetarily.
not monetarily, and it's one of the it's very interesting. It's such a hard job.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's just so hard. And I think that's why it's just tough, man.
Yeah.
It's
And
very, very tough.
I don't want to go too hard into this because I know
Yeah.
it can be really sensitive.
There's a lot of different factors that go into it.
But like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and in my life, in my circle, I know one other stay-at-home mom. I know one. Every other mom I know that, may have been a stay-at-home mom at one time in her life has since gone back to work, usually for my husband. But and I get it. Some women have to, and that's fine. But I just think if you can stay home, you should. And I know that's a really sensitive topic.
Yeah, I think that's something you got to work through. But something that we like, whether or not we made money or not, you would have stayed home because we would have sacrificed basically everything to have you stay home.
And I
We
did,
would have
like,
been in a tiny house. We would have been living with your parents. Like it would have been, hey, whatever it takes for me to stay home, I'm going to be home.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's the level of commitment that maybe it will require. Not saying everybody should have that level of commitment, but that is the level of commitment that you had to the game. You know what I'm saying? That is literally the level of commitment. It was like, I'm staying home. I'm going to raise our kids. That's the highest value thing I could do. And we were on the same front with that. And it was like, we will sacrifice everything to make sure that you can do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And have you ever heard the story? I'm almost positive it was Charles Spurgeon's mom. It was either him or who was the prime minister of England during World War II?
Gandhi.
Stop. No, what was that guy's name?
I don't remember.
Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill.
Ooh, was it him? Okay, it was either Spurgeon or Churchill.
That Winston Churchill, that's a
He's an intense
phenomenal dude.
But his mom, one of those two men's mom,
Yeah.
she had a bunch of kids and she used to like wear her apron around the house. And that she says that when she would get overwhelmed, she would put her apron over her head and pray. And her kids knew that when mom's apron is over her head, she's praying and you need to leave her alone. But she would put her apron over her head and pray for her children or pray for her home or pray for whatever. And that was like her little prayer room. And then she would put her apron down and get back on with her day, which I thought was so funny. But I think it's so important as a mom to remember to be really prayerful over your family, over your children. I think the prayer of a mom and of a wife is second to none. And so I think you need to remember to be prayerful over your home and over your family.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Amen to that. And by the way, if you want to do the apron thing, and if you have nothing,
oh my God, Richard,
I'll let you do the apron
stop
thing.
Stop it. Oh my gosh.
We might have to go back to the intimacy episode.
Gosh.
Anyways, on to another note. Yeah. So how would you summarize? Like,
I
wrap
was
it
just
up.
gonna ask you that.
No, I want you to wrap it up and leave. I want you to leave the audience with so much value they won't even know what to do with themselves.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So on the tactical side of parenting, be super consistent. Say what you mean mean what you say. Follow through, but also be reasonable and be willing to eat crow when you have to. Just have so many conversations with your kids. Walk them through how you came to your conclusions. Listen to how they came to theirs. Don't be threatened by questions, especially of your faith or things that you really value. Welcome those questions because it's better that they ask them in your home than not.
Mm-hmm.
And be really, really honest with your children and remind them how much value God has for all people. And I'm going to say this again because I think it's really important. But if you tell your kids that, okay, it's kind of like that scene in Mean Girls where the PE teacher is giving them the sex talk. And he's like, if you have sex, you will get pregnant and you will die. And it's like,
I'm not going to have sex.
Right? Well, you think, but then it's like, okay, so they're so scared. But then they have sex and they realize, wait, I didn't get pregnant and I didn't die. And it was actually really great. Now they realize that you lied.
He lied, yeah. And
so instead we try to tell our kids like, hey, sex is really wonderful in its parameters where it belongs. And it's the most special, beautiful thing God gave us. But it's reserved for this really special relationship. That's a lot more honest. So then they don't get to be 18, 19, 20 in college and realize, oh my gosh, mom lied to me about that. And this is actually really fun, or these people are actually really nice, or whatever.
We've been pretty open with our kids about that topic, maybe more so than most.
And this is totally not what this topic is about, but I think Christian homes should be the most sex positive homes in the world.
Yeah.
And so I really try to be very honest. Sex is wonderful. Sex is a gift. Sex is beautiful, but sex is reserved for your husband and your wife only. Yeah. And that's not.
Or else you ruin it.
That's a protection.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, risk, STDs and all this stuff that God put in place to protect marriage and to protect sex and whatever. So I think Christian homes should be the most sex positive places ever. But back to this episode, back to our summary.
We should make a shirt, sex positive.
Yes, I think so. I would wear it at home. Anyways, stop. And okay. And then to summarize the parenting as a team side, I would say it's don't pit your spouse against your kids for your benefit, right? Don't make somebody else be the heavy. Be on the same team. Never let your kids disrespect your spouse. They can express frustration without being disrespectful. And so I would always, always, always call that out. Did I miss anything?
Shoot, I think you nailed it so bad. It was good.
Oh, good, because I really have to use the restroom, so I'm hoping we're almost done.
Well, no, let's wrap it up. No, okay. I think that was great, babes. Hopefully the audience got a lot of value. Hey, guys, if you get a lot of value out of the podcast and you think it's going to help other couples, please share it because that helps hopefully everybody grow. We would appreciate that. And with that being said, you want to leave them with a little challenge or something, a little note for the week?
I don't have a challenge. I think if you guys want more parenting content, let us know that. Because like we said, we are obviously marriage focused. That's what this podcast is a marriage podcast. So how much you guys really want us to go into parenting, I'm not really sure. So let us know kind of some feedback there.
Where should they let us know?
The best place would either be comments on YouTube. We see all of those, or comments on Instagram or messages on Instagram. Our Instagram is feminine.on.fire. And YouTube is obviously just the Vow Factor. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
comments or
perfect.
messages, those places would be helpful.
That'd be legit.
All right.
Let's do it.
Thanks, babe.
Thanks, babes. Love you.
Parenting with you is fun.
Oh, yeah.
Love ya.
Love you. Bye.